After vanquishing the Chargers last weekend, Week 13 brings us two bitter AFC rivals in prime time with the top spot in the West on the line. We'll look at a QB matchup with some interesting history at play, why the AFC Defensive Player of the Week could be the linchpin to Denver's defensive scheme against Travis Kelce, and how the hostile environment of Arrowhead Stadium shaped some of the greatest teams in Broncos history. Welcome into Broncos Weekend, everybody. I'm Matt Boyer, alongside Alexis Perry and the Hall of Famer back in the gold jacket, Mr. Steve Atwater.
Yes, the win gets the gold.
Guys, the buzz around this team right now, this game, some fans are saying biggest game since Super Bowl 50, biggest game since that 2015 season. And at the center of it is two quarterbacks playing at a very high level, hitting their stride from a comfort and leadership standpoint in Teddy Bridgewater and Patrick Mahomes. Let's take a look at some of those stats right there from the past couple of weeks. Alexis, Teddy's stats don't jump off the page from last week necessarily because he had to come out of the game, but he was very efficient. How much do you think his efficiency plus his toughness helped change the mind of some Broncos fans that might be doubting Teddy after the Eagles game?
Yeah, well, Broncos country, they have high standards for their team, and especially their starting quarterback. But I think Sunday's showing against the Chargers, that was the first step in the right direction for him to get back in this fan base's good graces. He showed his toughness early on that scramble into the end zone. He very easily could have run out of bounds and still set this team up for 3rd and goal. But instead, he cut back inside, and he was willing to take contact even though he didn't have to. And then when he came back in the second half after he got that shin patched up, I was told that that was a really nasty injury. He was still able to orchestrate an 80-yard drive that really sealed the deal there for the Denver Broncos. I think he showed grit and resiliency, and I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of heart on display from him over the next few weeks.
Last time Teddy played in Arrowhead, it was with Carolina in 2020. 310 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and a rushing TD. But Steve,
Yes.
Patrick Mahomes that day, 374 passing and 4 touchdowns.
Still wasn't enough.
Yeah, but in fairness, Patrick Mahomes has looked, dare I say, human at certain points during this season. What types of situations do you think Vic and this defense are going to try and put Mahomes in on Sunday?
Well, I think, first of all, it's mandatory that we get pressure with only 4. The teams who've had some success against them, they were able to get home with 4. Tennessee Titans, they played them really well. We got to keep Mahomes in the pocket, absolutely, because you know he's going to try to scramble. When he scrambles out to the right, he's deadly. He's out to the left. He still can be deadly.
You've seen him throw left-handed before.
But he's not nearly as accurate as he is going to his right side. So hopefully he can. Hopefully Fangio and this defense can keep Patrick Mahomes contained, not let Kelce get too many catches as well.
Well, they might try and make Mahomes as comfortable as possible by taking away, as you mentioned, Travis Kelce, one of his favorite targets, and AP. They might use the AFC Defensive Player of the Week to do it. Let's take a look at Travis Kelce and Pat Surtain. AP, Surtain became the first Broncos rookie since Steve Atwater getting 2 picks in a single game back in 1989. There we go.
Crazy.
We mentioned he's the AFC Defensive Player of the Week, and Vic Fangio said he deserves to be in the Defensive Rookie of the Year conversation. So, how good are his chances, and what stood out to you about last week's performance?
Well, Pat Surtain is in the conversation for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Micah Parsons, he's actually the favorite right now, but I mean, Pat Surtain, he has the 2nd best odds according to our friends from FanDuel. So I really think that if he can go out there, if he could string together a really nice showing here throughout the month of December and also help this team punch their ticket to the postseason, his chances will go up even more. So in terms of what I liked about his showing against the Chargers, I think it was his ball anticipation. I think Ryan Harris said it best on Broncos Country Connected that he has such a high football IQ. He knows when to get underneath, and he can put himself in a great position to make a game-changing play. Also, he makes these plays with his hands, not just his body. So that shows the confidence that he has in his game. He is a rookie, but he plays like a veteran. And I just think that that is so fun to watch. I absolutely love this pick for the Broncos.
5.7 yards a target certainly puts him in veteran status when you're talking about his defensive playability. Steve? This game is the one that Bronco fans targeted when Surtain was drafted, and they said, this is the guy to stop Travis Kelce. Now, Vic Fangio came out this past week and said, hold on a second. You might not see him as much on Kelce as you think because we need to reshuffle the defense. It's going to take some linebackers, some DBs. In your mind, how would you limit Kelce, and how much are we going to see Surtain on Kelce?
Well, yeah, Von Miller, he mentioned it back in training camp, too. He kind of had a slip of the tongue, like, hey, man, we're going to have Pat Surtain on Travis Kelce. I would like to see that matchup. Back from my old coaching days, Little League ball, one of the things we like to do was match up our number one corner on the number two receiver. And right now, Travis Kelce is Patrick Mahomes' number two guy in terms of number of targets and receptions. So I like to see my man Pat Surtain locking up Travis Kelce. And Travis Kelce, he's a big guy. And once he gets going and if a guy jams him up and slows him down, it takes him a while to get back up to speed. So having a guy with Pat Surtain's size, speed, strength, all that together, I think will be a good combination for him. And we'll have to figure out something else for, of course, Tyreek Hill, the cheetah.
Last time Denver played KC in KC, Kelce had 8 catches, 136 yards, and a touchdown. So if Denver's going to limit his time on the field, they might utilize the running attack as we take a look at that ground game for the Broncos. Javonte Williams going up against Chris Jones in that KC front seven. AP, last week you said run the ball and then run it some more. The Broncos listened and they won the game. Williams was also the team's leading wide receiver. So for KC, are the Broncos going to lean on that ground game again heavily, or do the Chiefs present a matchup where the receivers now need to become a bigger part of the offense?
Well, I absolutely love seeing the Broncos commit to the ground game last week, but things could be a little bit more difficult for them this week, given the fact that the Chiefs have given up just 132 rushing yards combined to the Cowboys and Raiders over their last 2 games. Now, Javonte Williams, we all know what a huge threat he is. He could be solo this week given the fact that Melvin Gordon is 50-50, but either way, I do think we'll see the Chiefs stack the box, which is actually great news for Teddy Bridgewater because that can open things up downfield for him. Obviously, the Chiefs, they have very good cornerbacks, Fenton, Snead, but Courtland Sutton and Tim Patrick, they still have the size advantage, so I think Teddy Bridgewater just, throw one up, let your guys come down, make a big play. But then also with the stacked box, I think the seams could be an area of weakness. So I think this could be a big week for guys like Noah Fant, Alberto, Eric Saubert. We saw him get his first career touchdown last week. Maybe he'll get another one here this week. So yeah, all in all, I think the Broncos, they just need to come out, have a great sense of urgency like they did last week, find a balance between the run and the pass, and then of course just keep Patrick Mahomes off the field.
Steve, the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Well, Pat Shurmur wants to keep Chris Jones off the field as much as possible. Listen, an absolute great game record, Steve, because you came in after that Cowboys game and was like, did you see 95?
He was wreaking havoc.
A 3.5 sack performance. It's a career high for him. How do the Broncos account for him and make sure he doesn't turn in another career high performance?
It's only one way.
How's that?
Physicality.
Okay, I like it.
Physicality. And this Broncos offensive line, I know we've got some guys in, some guys out. Garrett Bowles, fortunately, will be back with us this week. We have to be physical when going up against them, whether it's you got them by yourself or you're double teaming them. You got to be physical because if you're out there playing around with them, playing like this is flag football, he's going to destroy you. And but I have a lot of confidence that our guys are going to come out and be tough on him and treat him the same way we did the Los Angeles Chargers and also earlier in the season, the Dallas Cowboys.
Quinn Miners and Netani Moody both played very, very well, replacing those guys up along the front of the offensive line for the Broncos. But Chris Jones, as you mentioned, a whole nother level. So that's going to be a tall order for the Broncos' young O-linemen here this weekend. We've got to take a quick break, but when we come back on Broncos Weekend, Arrowhead Stadium has been a house of horrors for the Broncos at times, but it's also produced legendary moments on the way to some Super Bowl seasons. We'll review the Broncos' greatest games in KC. That's next. Few teams have provided Denver a tougher test on the road than the Kansas City Chiefs, with Denver's first win at Arrowhead Stadium coming 14 years after the franchises first met in 1960. In 1974, John Keyworth's 2 rushing touchdowns led the way as Denver beat Kansas City 17-14 for the Broncos' first road victory against the Chiefs. These two teams have met 122 times in team history, but only one of those games occurred in the postseason. In the 1997 playoffs, Terrell Davis rushed for over 100 yards with 2 touchdowns, and Darian Gordon's pass breakup near the goal line sealed the win late as Denver edged the Chiefs 14-10 in Kansas City on their road to Super Bowl 32. Arrowhead Stadium has also been the site of record-breaking performances by the Broncos. In 2002, Hall of Famer Shannon Sharpe set what was then a franchise record for receiving yards in a game with 214. Sharpe's big day and a punt block from Keith Burns helped Denver narrowly beat the Chiefs 37-34 in overtime. As for their most recent win against the Chiefs on the road,
Peyton bounces around, throws one. He's got a touchdown! Touchdown, Denver, Emmanuel Sanders.
In 2015, Peyton Manning threw 3 touchdown passes, but it was the Denver defense stealing a win with Bradley Roby's scoop and score with 27 seconds left as Denver escaped Kansas City with a 31-24 victory.
Bradley Roby picks up the fumble and scores. Are you kidding me?
Whether it was their first Super Bowl season or their most recent one, a successful Broncos season usually has to go through Arrowhead Stadium. Welcome back to Broncos Weekend, everybody. Okay, Steve, speaking of success in Arrowhead, that 97 playoff game, okay, the biggest win arguably in this series because it's the only postseason meeting between these two teams. How much confidence did that game give you that you guys could win it all in 97?
Well, it really made us confident that we were on the right track, that we had done a lot of things right up to that point. But guess what? We had the Pittsburgh Steelers next. And so we couldn't get too far ahead of ourselves. But we enjoyed it that moment, that night. And we got on to the Pittsburgh Steelers after that game.
If you go back and look, Steve, at each of the 5 previous AFC West titles, the most recent ones that the Broncos have won, they all occurred in years that they won in Arrowhead Stadium going back to 2011. So 2015 was the last time they got a win along that Missouri-Kansas state line. Justin Simmons said, this one is the biggest game he's ever played in. So, Steve, all of that being said, the history, the current situation, what does this game represent for the Broncos in 2021?
Well, I think this game is a pivotal game at a pivotal point in this season. Now, this team, we've seen some highs, starting off 3-0, going undefeated in the preseason, and also some lows with the losses. Some teams that a lot of people feel like we should have won, we didn't win. So I think we're at a really good point, and I think a victory in this game will show everybody, especially on the big stage Sunday night, will show everyone that this team is for real.
Last week, Steve, you and I discussed George Paton's next moves, but after that Chargers win, we've got to talk about his most recent draft class because those guys showed up in a big way, and not just Pat Surtain. I know Pat Surtain got a lot of the headlines, but Quinn Miners, Javonte Williams, Jonathan Cooper, all of these guys contribute. Baron Browning, can't forget about him. So when you look at these last few games, what do these contributions mean to the rise of this 2021 draft class?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think it's super important, first of all, because you got young guys who are playing well. The future looks good for them, but they want to win now. The veterans on the team want to win now, so they're really appreciating the contributions that they're making. Of all the guys, now I like Javonte Williams. He's been there right from the start, contributing from the start. I love his heart, love how hard he runs the ball. Quinn Miners comes in there. If he's a guy you're in the alley with, he's having a fight, you want him right there in that alley with you. Jonathan Cooper got through the hard issues. It's so motivational, so inspirational. And he plays with so much heart, even though he had a heart issue, he plays with a ton of heart. But I say at this point, right now, Baron Browning and the impact that he's making, taking advantage of the opportunity, had a couple of injuries on the team, unfortunately for those guys, both Alexander Johnson and Josie Jewell. But Baron Browning has come in, played really well, and I think he has a very high ceiling, and I'm looking forward to seeing him continue to develop over this year and into the future.
For two guys who didn't start the year in the starting lineup, he and Kevin Young have had terrific last couple of weeks here. If the draft was today, Steve, the Broncos would draft 17th. But George Paton proving that he knows what he's doing, finding those draft gems in those later rounds. So Broncos country, even though these wins might mean a lower draft positioning, hey, guess what? George Paton knows what he's doing here for the Broncos when it comes to finding the right personnel. We've got to take a quick break, but when we come back on Broncos Weekend, is this the week Denver triumphs over Mahomes and snaps the streak? Alexis is chatting with DNVR's Andrew Mason about the narrow and very possible path to victory for the Broncos. Welcome back to Broncos Weekend, everybody. If the Broncos are going to get a victory in Arrowhead against the Chiefs on Sunday, what does their path to victory look like, and how much different will that game plan be than their last game against the Chargers? Well, for those answers and more, Alexis Perry is chatting with our good friend Andrew Mason from DNVR.
Thanks so much, Matt. Mace, the Denver Broncos, they're coming off a huge win over the LA Chargers, and they now head to Kansas City looking for first place in the division. What's been the tone around the UCL Training Center this week as the Broncos prepare for their biggest game of the year?
Well, it's a little bit different. And now there are some guys that are kind of even-keeled, like Teddy Bridgewater is basically like, oh, it's Sunday Night Football. That just means the day is longer.
Steady Teddy.
That's who he is. But then Justin Simmons, he's been around for 10 of the 11 losses in this mind-numbing losing streak to the Chiefs.
Right.
And so I asked him point blank, like, where does this stack up as far as games in your career? And he said, it's without a doubt the biggest game he's played in. And so you get that sense, like even the reserve, like Jerry Jeudy's kind of reserved, but even he says, hey, it's not really a different vibe, but you definitely feel the urgency of this week. So there's definitely something different in the air, and it's awesome because we haven't felt that difference in a long time around here.
Exactly. Well, this week, Teddy Bridgewater, he'll arrive at Arrowhead Stadium, as James Palmer pointed out, with a higher passer rating, a higher completion percentage, more yards per attempt, and more than half as many interceptions as the former MVP, Patrick Mahomes. So tell us a little bit about some of the factors that you think have really played into that this year.
Well, the thing is, Patrick Mahomes is having, it's weird to say, the worst season of his career, but he's still pretty good. And if you actually kind of go parse the numbers out a little bit more, then I went through 10 stats that included passer rating and ESPN QBR, but also included things like EPA, expected points added per play, completion percentage over expected, third downs, etc. And when I put these two things together, the average rank for those guys was Mahomes 11.4, Bridgewater 11.8. So they're basically the same, but what we're seeing is Patrick Mahomes struggling. He was trying to force things earlier this season. He's playing a little bit more within himself now. The Chiefs, they overhauled their offensive line in this offseason, and I think you cannot overstate how much that discombobulated them and even discombobulated Patrick Mahomes. They're playing better now. We're seeing better play from Mahomes with that offensive line congealing. But remember, just because you see these numbers and they're equal this year, Mahomes is Mahomes. Teddy is having the best season of his career. Mahomes is having the worst season of his career as a starter, and they're basically at the same level.
Very interesting. Well, we saw the Broncos commit to the ground game Sunday against the Chargers, but this Kansas City defensive front, they could really pose some problems for this Broncos ground game this week. So do you think the Broncos are going to stick to their Week 12 game plan, or do you think they might switch things up a little bit?
I think they'll switch things up. Now, you want to run the ball against these guys, and off the top of my head, if for teams that run the ball 34 plus times on the Chiefs when Mahomes starts, they're 9-3. Now, some of that is teams playing from ahead. So I think a key is to get ahead, and a key is to take advantage of the opportunities that present themselves. If the Chiefs stack 8 in the box, and I think they will, the Broncos have to be willing to take that shot downfield, take the play action chance. Even if it's Courtland Sutton drawing an interference penalty, that's still as good as a completion, as Pat Shurmur pointed out this week. So if they stack the box, go over the top, and if they do that, that means they're going to have to pull a safety back, and then you're going to have the running lanes that you want. So maybe if things go right, we're talking about a little of the pass to set up the run if the Chiefs go 8 in the box.
Well, defensively against the Chargers, we saw the Broncos use a 4-man rush to really contain Justin Herbert and that high-powered Chargers offense. Do you think that is the key against Mahomes, or does he pose a different threat?
Well, it's really, really tough, because if you blitz him, if you bring the extra rusher, you get to 5 rushers, he finds the vacancy in coverage so quickly. So you really want to try to get home with 4. Now, if this were September, mid-October, I'd like the Broncos' chances a lot to get home with 4, because that O-line in Kansas City, like I mentioned earlier, was really struggling. It's gotten better. That being said, your first choice is get home with 4. If the Broncos are blitzing, Mahomes is going to find a way to exploit that.
Okay, what are some key matchups that you have your eyes peeled on this week?
Well, Travis Kelce, because he's caused so many problems for the Broncos over the years. And, okay, what do you throw at him? Do you try Justin Simmons? Do you try Caden Stearns, who's your dime backer? Do you try Pat Surtain? Remember, kind of the original plan this year was Surtain was going to be that dime guy and would line up on tight ends in a situation like this. Basically, it's going to take a village, and they're going to throw some different looks at Travis Kelce, but that's the one where you're kind of most fearful of him. Also, you get down the line with the Chiefs' targets. You know, Mecole Hardman is basically their third or fourth option, but he's still capable of making plays. And do they try to get the ball to him if they see a favorable matchup in the secondary? Like last week, Kyle Fuller, who's played better since coming back, he was targeted 9 times by Justin Herbert. And allowed 8 receptions. Do the Chiefs try to throw at Kyle Fuller? If that's the case, it's going to be incumbent on Fuller to make a play on the ball and make them pay.
Okay, I like that. Lastly, I know it's been a long time since the Broncos have beaten the Chiefs, but what makes you feel confident that they're going to snap this 11-game losing streak this Sunday?
It's a narrow path to victory, but it's there. And I think one thing, it starts, and this is obvious, but it starts with not turning the ball over.
Right.
Don't give the Chiefs opportunities. And Teddy Bridgewater, he's had 6 giveaways, but they were clustered in basically about just about 6 quarters of play at midseason. He's been turnover free the rest of the way. So you want Teddy to still be no mistake Teddy. Take what the Chiefs give you. If they stack the box, go play action, exploit that. If they pull guys back, take advantage of your explosive runners and basically keep them off guard. And if you do that, and then if you can extend drives, because the Chiefs, they struggle to win if you can possess the ball for at least 34 minutes historically. If you can extend drives, you're going to have a great chance to win this game.
Well, a narrow path to victory for the Denver Broncos, but hopefully they take it. Mace, thanks so much for your time.
No problem. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at Mace Denver. Now, Matt, we'll send it back over to you.
Great stuff, guys. All right, Steve, we've heard it all before. 11 straight losses to KC. Haven't beaten Mahomes yet. I'm sick of hearing it, Steve. Broncos country is sick of hearing about it. What's it going to take to end this streak once and for all? Your keys to victory.
Yeah, first key on the offensive side of the ball, I think Teddy Bridgewater is going to have to get rid of the ball a little bit quicker than he normally does. And he may have to run the ball sometimes when he gets pressured to get some key first downs. And on the other side of the ball, that defensive line is going to have to get pressure with only 4. Now, that's going to be tough, but that's what we're going to have to do because we need guys back in zone coverage. Also, linebackers, mentioned a little earlier, got to make sure they get that depth, 10 to 12 yards. Don't be at 3, 4, 5 yards. That's not deep enough.
Giveaways in yards per play, Steve. KC is 31st in the league in turning it over because they've done it a ton. Now, yards per play, they're giving up 6.05 yards a play. Run the ball, control the clock, get some turnovers, keep Mahomes on the bench. Like you said, getting home with 4 rushers going to be key. If they can do that, are the Broncos in first place at the end of Sunday?
Yes. We got to run the ball like that same running back from last week. Run that ball, pound it.
We're going to see Steve in the gold jacket, Broncos country. I can feel it next week. All right, that'll do it for us on Broncos Weekend. For the Hall of Famer Steve Atwater, I'm Matt Boyer. So long, Broncos country. We will see you next week.